This is 5 Minute Feng Shui, episode 78, The Feng Shui of Clocks. Welcome to the 5 Minute Feng Shui podcast, where each week I talk about how to move energy and make money. You'll learn how to create a prosperous home and an abundant life using classical Chinese Feng Shui. I'm your host, Katie Weber, publisher of the Red Lotus Letter, Feng Shui Easing for Wealth. Each week, I'll cover Feng Shui topics that can help you improve your life, share inspiring stories, and always end with 3 easy-to-implement Feng Shui tips that you can put to work right away, and usually in about 5 minutes. Now let's get started on the 5 minutes that could change your life. Hello and welcome to this episode of 5 Minute Feng Shui. Today we're talking about clocks and their effect on us. You know, there's been a lot of talk in the Feng Shui world about whether clocks represent good Feng Shui or not. And like most things in life, the definitive answer isn't a yes or a no. Instead, the answer is it depends. It's the exception to the rule to find an instance where a Feng Shui answer is black and white. It really is, there's no clear answer, but except there are some clear do's and don'ts, and we're going to talk about those a little bit later on. Right now, while we're at home with coronavirus and COVID-19 all around the world, everybody's kind of in sympathy with one another. It's kind of nice, you know, that we're having a worldly experience, that all our humanity can have some understanding for one another and what we're going through. And one of the things about this whole COVID and coronavirus thing is that we are much more aware about time than ever. I mean, think about it. We're told, oh, it's going to last this long, it's going to peak here, it's going to do this then, and there's really no clear timeline. And so a lot of us are quarantined, or we're under stay-at-home orders, or these are times where we are very time focused and very aware of the tick, tick, tick of time. So I thought, you know, if you're at home, I know that I've heard this. My parents tell me they're in their 80s. They really feel confined because they're older. And so many people are feeling so confined right now and are very time aware, looking at the clock, hearing the tick, 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 that, like I was saying. And so I thought, well, what better time to talk about clocks than now. So here we go. Let's talk about the Feng Shui of clocks and what they mean, and some do's and don'ts for that. So as far as clocks go, many times it's whether they're good Feng Shui or not really relates to where they're placed. Now, when they're placed right and used properly, clocks really aren't a big concern in Feng Shui, but when they're not, that's when trouble begins. In general, though, clocks really aren't considered to be auspicious in Feng Shui because it is representative of the passage of time. And when clocks are oversized, it represents an oversized presence of time and the passing of time, and it implies death. That's why these oversized clocks that are so popular on design blogs and decorating stores, they actually symbolize death and being under the gun of time. My mom broke her hip about a year ago, and sadly, I know that the rehabilitation nursing home that she was in was this very beautiful place and very nicely decorated, but it just made my skin crawl. I'll be to tell you the truth. It was carefully decorated. It was clean and all that, but the people who own the nursing home were avid hunters. So as soon as you walked in the front door, there's all these magnificent animals. I'm not going to call them trophies, but there are these magnificent animals all stuffed. So as soon as you walk in, there's this symbols of death. And so that bothered me. And then you walk down the hallway and you see their dining area, and they have an enormous clock. So these people can't even be in peace as they're eating their meal without having to stare or eat under the gaze of this enormous clock that I'm sure someone thought was really great decorating. And it's just not. It seemed just cruel to me when I saw it. Now, a lot of clocks are actually, I'm going to say they're energetic beings. They're not a being per se, but they have an energy about them. And what's interesting is there is a lot of connection to clocks. I'll give you a story of that about it. Many clocks are known to stop when someone dies, and that happened in my life. My grandmother fought with her sister, my aunt, who I was named for, over a family heirloom clock that was given to their parents. And her sister, my aunt, retained the clock even though their mother had given it to my grandmother. And so it painfully reminded my grandmother of the loss of her parents every time she'd visit my aunt's home, where this clock was prominently placed. However, when my grandmother died, my aunt obviously was still alive, but when my grandmother died, the clock stopped at the exact time of her death, and it never worked again. It's really interesting how people relate to clocks and relate to timepieces. I know many people have written to me about clock stoppages when someone's died or there's been upset. I know people who only can wear mechanical watches, that electric watches don't work for them, and so they have to use mechanical ones like a Rolex that is self-winding, or the type that you actually have to wind. It's fascinating to me. I find it absolutely fascinating. Now, when we think about Feng Shui, it really requires balance in everything. So when a clock is oversized, that means there's an oversized emphasis on time. So hanging a clock like these big decorator clocks that you see, it may make you feel more pressured to do more in the day, feel like you can't manage your life, feel like time is running away from you. You can even make you feel physically ill just from this pressure all the time. You may find that you have a feeling of pressure all the time. And on the other hand, there are times when a clock actually can do some good and handle some of Feng Shui's most severe energies. So for instance, there are two types of illness energies that we talk about in Feng Shui, and one's called the 5 yellow and the other is called the black 2. And these are strong energies, and when they're together, or when you're worried about their influences, a chiming or pendulum clock is one of the best ways to wear down their energy, that illness energy that they project, with that smooth swinging back and forth of a pendulum or a clear chime ringing out. I love pendulum clocks. They are actually some of the best ways to bring movement to a house that's too still. So that makes them a really great activator. So if you've got an old grandfather clock with a pendulum, or you've got a ticking clock with a pendulum, these are great for areas that have illness energy, like the east corner this year in 2020 does. It's also good for activating positive energy, like in the northeast corner has a terrific energy for money and income, potential for making money through classes, and having a clock chiming there can activate that energy there. So there's some really nice ways that clocks can be beneficial in Feng Shui. Now, if you want to know more about the energies of the year, be sure to check out my Year of the Rat article on my website. You can go there by going to redlotusletter.com/rat and get more details. Because I'm going to mention some energies in these do's and don'ts that if you might want to look them up and see where they are and where they fall in your home, because you might want to activate or hold them down. So let's talk about some clock do's, things that you should do with clocks. Do use a pendulum or a chiming clock to activate the 6 star of networking and benefactors. This can bring windfalls, nice financial surprises, people out of the blue that will tell you about an opportunity. This is what I would call sort of the falling star. Wish upon a falling star, just falls into your lap, some good news. And having a chiming clock or pendulum clock, wherever that's located, that 6 star, and in this year in 2020, it's located in the southeast corner of your home. That's the well sector. Do use a pendulum or chiming clock to activate the 1 star of opportunity and income. This year, that star is in the northeast. When you have problems with illness, financial difficulty, serious serious problems, even cancer, things like this, we want to handle those energies and wear them down. This year, these are called the Earth stars 2 and 5, 5 yellow and 2 black. I mentioned it earlier. This year, the 5 star, which is the really serious one, is in the east, and having a pendulum clock there will help drain that energy. The east is the star of the oldest son. It's also the star of the family. So we're going to see family disruptions this year, as we have seen this year. People are losing loved ones to COVID. Job difficulties are creating crises in families, so we really want to handle that 5 star in the east. So in the east corner of your home, this is a great place to have a pendulum or chiming clock. And it's also good in the south corner of your home, where the 2 star is, that can create problems with everything from relationships to nagging illnesses. And nobody needs any illness this year. We've already got one big one on our radar, and that is definitely enough. Another do is to make sure that your clock is not oversized, and that you don't get one of those big giant decorator clocks, I call them, because they will dominate your room. It's very important to keep those in balance. Remember what I was talking about earlier about we don't want to feel overly pressured about time. We're already time conscious enough as it is, right? Do hang clocks in hallways, in living rooms, or in the kitchen. Keep them on the smaller side. Don't hang them up too high, because then that means that they've got dominance over you. You want to have them where they're at a reasonable height, not really way high up. That could really put the pressure of time on you. Do make sure that clocks next to the bed are small and not overly bright if they're electric. Sometimes I've stayed as a guest at a hotel or friends' houses, and those darn lights are so bright and you don't sleep. That means that clock is influencing your sleep even. You can't get rest with that clock. So you want to look at that clock that you have next to the bed and see if it's too bright and work on that. Do make sure that clocks in the bedroom wake you to a pleasant sound that you enjoy, like chimes or birds or something like that. You don't want to have a buzzer that just wakes you up with a start, that awful grating. Now, if you like that and that doesn't bother you, but you know what? I think it's a lot more pleasant if you could have a clock that wakes you up in a pleasant way to birds chirping or something like that. I think it's a lot more pleasant. Now, let's talk about some clock don'ts. Don't hang a clock too close to the front door where it can be viewed at the front door. Again, this puts pressure on time, and it's also money, because the front door represents money and income and opportunity coming to you, and that means that you're going to always be pressed for money, and we don't want that. So make sure that you can't see a clock from the front door. Don't hang a clock in the dining room, because this implies death and rushing to eat. Nobody needs to be rushing as they're, enjoying a holiday dinner, or maybe, hopefully, a COVID celebration dinner. Maybe you get together with your whole family and just have a big meal together to celebrate once it's all over. But you don't want a clock in the dining room, so take that out of there. Again, don't hang those oversized clocks because they have unhealthy chi that they press on you. Don't allow clocks to be unwound and still. A still clock represents death and going backwards. I once knew of a man who had a clock collection. He had a whole wall of them, and not one of them were running. And he had lots of financial and business difficulties. If you have a clock, make sure it's running. If you see it, if it doesn't work or it's broken, remove it, go put it in your garage, put it in a closet, just get it to the clockmaker and have it repaired, but don't have a still unmoving clock. That's really very negative chi. Also, typically it's not a great idea to hang clocks in the east. Now, this year with the 5 yellow, it's different. But once the 5 yellow is gone, I really don't like clocks in the east, because they represent time and can create problems in the family or rifts with the oldest son. And this is something we don't want, right? We want to foster our family. But this year, that clock will help you with the 5 yellow. Also, and I mentioned earlier, don't hang a clock too high on the wall, as this appears that time is over you, and that also implies death. All right, well, I hope this has been an interesting episode of 5 Minute Feng Shui about clocks. I think that's very interesting from a Feng Shui perspective, how they can be harmful and they can be helpful. And I think that just putting them in the right place and using them the right way, you're going to enjoy them. I have actually 2 clocks in my home, actual running clocks. And one is one that was given to me in a box of pieces, and I had it completely rebuilt. It's beautiful brass and glass. It's very elegant, looks very French, and I wind it every Sunday. Every Sunday is my clock winding day. I give you a little personal insight into my clocks. How do I have them? Okay, so how does the Feng Shui lady have clocks in her house? And I also have another one that I have in a stairway, and this is over in the south corner this year, where the 2-star is, because I want it to kind of wear down that energy. And both of them chime beautifully, and I think that this is a wonderful accent to have in your home, that beautiful chiming sound of a clock. Bells create energy, and I think it's a lovely accent to have in your home. So if you have one of those big beautiful grandfather clocks, enjoy it. Just don't put it in the dining room, and don't put it right next to the front door, and I think you'll be fine. In the meantime, let's finish up with your 3 tips for the day. Number 1, avoid oversized decorator clocks. They just are not good. It doesn't matter where they are, and I hate to tell you that in case you've invested in one, but they really aren't good. Just take it to the Goodwill. You don't need to have that time crunch and that time pressure. You don't want time to have dominion over you. You want to control time. Tip number 2, avoid placing clocks in the dining room. Again, this is a place where you are eating and nourishing yourself, and where you are spending time with loved ones. No one needs the implication of time to rush you or make you feel pressured to enjoy your time eating or being with your family. Number 3, and this is about digital clocks. Make sure that if you have a bright red or bright screen on your digital clock in the bedroom, cover it up with some type of dark plastic. This will be a way to handle some of that light energy, and will help improve your sleep. I know personally I have a clock that I just love because it wakes me up to chimes in the morning. I love it. When I set the clock, that is. I haven't set it in years. But when I do wake up in the night and look at it, I have a piece of dark plastic over it, and it's light enough that I can still see what time it is, but it's not so bright that it wakes me up. So really important, especially if you have red numbers, make sure that you tone down some of the brightness if you have a clock in your bedroom. All right, there you go. Clocks, do's and don'ts. I hope that was a fun episode for you. It was fun for me. And in the meantime, please take care of yourself and take care of your family. Be careful and be safe. And I'm thinking about you. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any more questions or would like to know more about the Year of the Rat and the type of energies that we have this year, make sure you go to redlotusletter.com/rat, and you can get all the details there. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and I will talk to you on the next episode of 5 Minute Feng Shui. Thanks for listening to 5 Minute Feng Shui today. The Year of the Rat is coming, and I want to share with you where you can find money, love, and opportunity in 2020. And it's all in my annual Feng Shui Forecast, the Success Pack. You get a full year of in-depth Feng Shui details about how to use the energy of the year for success and prosperity. That's because every year we're showered with a Roman candle of opportunities for money, abundance, love, and opportunity. You just have to know where they are. And my Year of the Rat Feng Shui Success Pack includes all the details for every house and every zodiac sign. You also get this year's lucky clothing, handbag, and wallet colors. So be sure to go to redlotusletter.com/rat for all the details on the Year of the Rat and how to make this year the year of your dreams.